Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's May 2nd. This will be our chart lesson for today. And you can see we definitely had a reversal day today and a huge sell-off today. We closed way off the lows, but this thing was really, it really moved along. I mean, it was a really huge sell-off bar, but we did recover some from that. So does that mean we're going to keep working sideways? If you notice, the same place we've been bouncing is right along. You can see that little dash line. That's somewhat of the midline of this pink range here. And so once again, we kind of bounced at that midline of that range. And really, we kind of bounced off the lows down here where we've been bouncing every time. So will we get some more follow through selling tomorrow? We'll have to see. If you listen to the news, it had something to do with what they were posting, had something to do. Heck, I read the headline. I don't even remember what it said now. Actually, I remember what it was. They said it was had something to do with the banking sector, and I guess there's some more banks in trouble, and they're concerned with the Fed raising the rates some more and putting the banks in more jeopardy. And that's what they attributed this sell-off for today. We talked about it yesterday. We had a break of the green trend channel and a new high in place. It was a good chance it was a reversal. Might be a reversal day, and then we'd probably go lower. So we called it before they did, and we didn't have any idea what news was coming out today. So this is just this. The reason I'm telling you this is not because I'm trying to show you, hey, I know more than they do, but I don't believe. I think they write the news to match the price action. It's not the other way around. The news does not all necessarily affect the price action. They write the price action, or they write the. I'm sorry, they write the news to match the price action. Let's get this right. Sorry if I confused anybody, but that's my opinion. Is that they just write their news based on what the market does every day, and they look for something and they blame it on that. But we talked about yesterday, there was a good chance that maybe this was a reversal bar and we've had a break and a new high, and there's a good chance we could go lower. And sure enough, we had a huge sell-off day with follow-through selling. Now we could have gone higher. I talked about the expectation is that now we might get a sell-off here. It doesn't mean we could get follow through and continue on. We might correct from here and make another leg up, and then sell off, or we might even make another trend up. But it was a good opportunity. It was very high odds that we were going to have a sell-off today. And there it is, and they write the news to match that. So that's my opinion. Again, that's just my personal opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. But I've been doing this a long time, and I see it over and over and over. We call the turn before they do. I used to be, and the reason I say this is I used to be a fanatic about getting up early, watching the news, seeing what was going on, and the price action half the time would never match their early news. Then at the end of the day, they'd write something that says, "Oh, well, it rocketed up for this reason or it rocketed down for that reason." Don't waste your time with all that stuff. If you can read this chart, you got a better idea of what's coming the next day than they do. Trust me on that. So anyway, let's flip over to the intraday chart. You can see a big bearish day. We did have a nice rally at the end. I think we just were way overdone for one day. And there still seems to be strong buying coming in at this price level. And it did once again today. So let's flip over there and we'll go through the trades and wrap this day up. But let's go look at the 2000 tick chart. But here it is, and you can see how brutal. Let me get this crosshairs off here. You can see how brutal this sell-off was. Very, very strong sell-off. Spent more than half of this sell-off in the lower half of the two-tiered range. And then suddenly we got a break, and it looks like we really never we had the break, but we really never had a retest. Once this thing reversed, I believe this is probably mostly short covering as it started gaining momentum, and it was hard to know until about really right in here. This became a pretty strong trend. Then of course it comes back all the way back to the trend line, and it has a hard time getting off there again, and it never can regain that momentum. So not a lot of trades, because by the time you can recognize what a strong trend this is, it's pretty much over. So most of the opportunity was in this downtrend. And let's zoom in there and take a look at it. And you had to be patient. There just wasn't a lot of opportunity to get into it. I will say that we've talked about this before. Once you start to see uh, a trend like this, you can just about enter at any good signal bar right off the key entry point. Um, if it triggers, you can see you got one right here that never triggered, and then you get the correction, and then then it starts over again. So just keep that in mind, but you need to recognize it. And what I'm talking about is the real tight channel like this with lots of stems on both sides. The corrections are very shallow. As you can see here, the corrections aren't more than a couple of ticks so far. And then you kind of get a little two-legged correction, and then you start over, and your corrections are getting a little bigger, but not much, maybe a bar or two. And you still continue to see all these little bars with lots of dojis and stems and so forth. That's still a very strong trend, and it continues like that all the way down. As we get down here, some of the corrections start to get a little bigger. And even here, we're trying to correct, and all we're doing is going sideways to down as we head back over here. So this is a really strong sell-off. Learn to recognize these, and if you can, and when you're a pretty good trader, you can start trading these. Here's one that comes back. This is probably good enough. I mean, that's only like 5 ticks right off the key entry point, right off the midline. That's a good thing about it. A lot of these are small 8 ticks. You can still use the 5 ticks. So not only were there a lot of good opportunities in this, a lot of them you still can use the old 8 tick safety stop rule. So this is great. And once again, early on, the volume was really low up here. So there wasn't much chance to get short up here. 7 o'clock came on this move down, and you just can't get short right in here. And I just don't see anything. There's a little two-legged correction right there, but that signal bar is not very good. And even this would be like a hidden second entry. It wouldn't be a true second entry. So a little risky going short there. And of course, we're just chopping along. This one is very tempting. But we've already had a close outside and a couple legs down, so I'm very leery of that one. If you took it, it wouldn't be the worst thing, because if you draw your channel here, it does. I mean, there's 3 bars and 2 of them really side by side, so you don't really get a good. You really want 3 good trending bars to call it a trend. That's always been kind of my unwritten rule. And you do get 3 bars there, but those 2 don't really look like they're trending. They just kind of look side by side. So, but you could probably still call that a trend, and you get a break, a new high. So maybe you take that. If you saw that and you took it, I wouldn't beat you up over it. Probably better to wait on something better than that. And we just keep working along here. And then finally, I marked this one. Again, I marked it green, but honestly, I kind of like this one, because this thing is not, look at, even though we're going sideways, the corrections are not there's not much to, we're mostly going sideways. And so you make this failed breakout, and you make a first entry and a second entry, and it fails. And this actually kind of closes outside this side of all this. In fact, I might even move that up to there, and it would probably be a more accurate channel. And so you're entering this one way on a close outside, and notice 1, 2, 3, that's like the 4th bar. So there's a good chance you're going to go lower. There's not much room to the low. It kind of, in a regular market, you probably wouldn't want to take this, but on a real strong down day, yeah, maybe you take that trade. So honestly, I liked it. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I like it. It's risky still though, so I'm going to mark it green. And then of course we pull back one more time, and then this is when it really starts to look like a strong downtrend here. And as I said, probably any of these strong bars that come back, probably not this one because it's congested. They all look a little congested, but you could probably enter right here if you wanted. I mean, every one of these, definitely probably right here. You want to do the corrections, and see, this is just a continuation of this move here. We're not making a correction really. This is a correction, so then it starts down again. So you want to kind of wait on the bars that set up after a correction. And of course you get this short right here off of it, and that one's off the midline. It was pretty obvious by this time. That's what we had going on, and so I like that bar just since it's such a small bar. 5 ticks. I mean, maybe it should be green. I think I meant to mark that green. But anyway, then you get your break, and you get a first entry. You turn back up, go right to the EMA, and you get a second entry. And again, that's like 8 ticks. Go short right there, and that's a good strong move. And you, depending on how you play it, you probably get a runner there. You may or may not. Depends on how you played it. And then again, the correction is just sideways, and then you get a little failed breakout. That bar is not perfect, but it's 5 ticks. It's so low risk. It's a failed breakout. You're in a strong downtrend. Maybe all you get before it takes off again. I think it's worth risking. I like that trade. And it is a second entry if you can't do your counts too. There's just really 2 legs back to the EMA. And then off it goes again. And I just don't see anything down through here until finally you get a first entry. And this breaks higher and turns down. I'd probably go use the engulfing bar to get you some extra room because it's close to the lows. But even if you went short down here, it just keeps going. I don't know if I would go short down here because the bar's so big. When it broke higher and turned down, and when it broke lower right there, that's a second entry. Just go short right there. And then, of course, this is a reversal. And actually, it wasn't until it broke here. Or this is a failed second entry. It's not a reversal. It's a failed second entry long. So it's a failure continuation pattern. But this is an inside bar. It doesn't break lower till down here near these lows. I think you should wait. And then, of course, it corrects here. You get another second entry here, but this bar is too bullish. And then by this one, you got congestion, and you're still in this channel too, but then you get the break, and it does try to go higher here and gives you that bearish bar. Because it didn't make a new high, and it's not really back to the midline, I'm a little concerned about it, but you can just see how bearish this thing is. It can't get through the EMA. It's as soon as it's coming back to the 21 bar moving average, it's selling off again. So you can't overlook that. So maybe you go short right there too. It's a very good signal bar. You tried to go higher 3 times. It probably trapped people right here thinking we're going to go on back up or at least back to the midline, and look at it go. Boom, boom, it's dropping again. And it corrects again. I didn't like this one because it's still inside the channel. Hopefully you get a break and maybe a push up. It doesn't happen. So once again, that probably would have been a great trade. But this one's probably a little too. We do have a break of this khaki channel here too, and at least a couple legs to a new low. So that's another concern with going short right there. But watch what happens. You come down, you make a new low, and you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry short right there. Again, you can't get back through the EMA. Just go short. There's another failure here, but you don't even get back to the EMA, and there's a double bottom there. So again, maybe you take it because it's such a strong trend, but really what you need to be trying to do is catch a runner on one of these trades and just holding on to it instead of trying to risk another entry further down into the trend. But if you hadn't entered yet and you haven't had a trade yet, maybe you take that trade. Finally, we run down here and bounce off the low end and start working higher. Again, that's a second entry short, and if you'd have taken it, it would have worked. But we're still inside that channel, and we have come off the low end of this 2-tiered channel now. So it's probably going to try to make a retest, but look what happens. It makes a triple test. The only reason I didn't mark this as a short was because it's just too congested, and you don't have a new high yet. But once it tried that third time, you will probably get a scalp out of it. But it's just a little congested, and I was a little weary of it. And you see, you would have got your scalp, but it does come back and make that new high, and before it actually goes lower again. So that's the concern there. We're getting way into this trend. It's really been strong. We've dropped a lot of points. So the further you get into it, the better the chance is you could get a reversal. So your trades need to start to you need to start to be a little more picky in your trades. They need to be a little better, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, and this was actually would be the signal bar here. It broke higher, but what I would do here is notice that you came over here and you try to come up once. That's all one test. That's all a second test, and this is all a third test. And it's a double top basically with that little tick higher that fails and turns down. Here, I would probably wait for this to close. Again, you could probably trade that as an engulfing bar. I'd probably wait for it to close. The concern with if it closes, if this is a range, you may not have enough room. But I think you're okay here if you took that. It's a little aggressive because we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere and we're just kind of working sideways. But you can play this as a range, and you're in a strong downtrend. So even though it's a range, your bias is short. So you'd rather be going short here than trying to buy down here. And then of course you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry. It fails. Big bearish bar. Just go short there. It's a failure. Obviously, again, failures are for advanced traders. Make sure you know what you're doing. And then you get another triple test right here. Very bearish bar. Plenty of room to get out. Take it. There's actually a lower high here, but now you don't have room to get out, and you're right in the lows, and you see then you get an inside bar. That's where you got to be careful. It would have ended up working. On a strong day like this, you probably get a scalp out of it, but you see what happens here. It suddenly reverses. So if you got it wrong, or if there hadn't been enough room, then suddenly it's racing the other way and you're stopped out and you're licking your chops. So that's why, the further you get into the trend, the more the more you slow down on, the pickier you get on your trades, I guess is what I'm saying. As long as it's a strong trend, as long as you're getting good setups, keep taking them, but start to get more picky this late in the trend. I mean, look, we've dropped. From, let's just say from the close yesterday, by the time you get down here, you dropped 70 points straight down almost, and really we opened at 8. Most of the drop started at 8:30, and it's not even 2 hours into the day, and we've dropped 70 points. So the further you get into that trend, start to get a little pickier until you get a nice correction, then maybe another one starts back. And then once you got the correction here, it just kept correcting. Well, maybe we sold off a little more up here, but it's more sideways, I would say. So you got a nice correction here. And I think it's just because we were way overdone, honestly. And there was a strong support area right in here. We already talked about that on the daily chart. But this thing bounces. You can't buy this yet. Don't even attempt to buy this, because this is the first break of the trend. This is the first time we could even get back to the trend line. And so don't try to buy that. And it's possible maybe I drew this trend line wrong. Maybe the trend doesn't start to here and it's a little steeper and we did get a break in new low. It's very possible. I didn't even look at it. I swear I drew it early this morning and I stayed with it, and it's working off the midlines and all. So I believe it to be accurate, but there could be a secondary channel here that's a little steeper, and you did get a break here in a new low. Because generally on a trend this strong, when you get a break, you're going to get a retest of the low, and we just didn't get it today. So it leads me to wonder if there's not something else here. I didn't look that, like I said, I didn't even look that closely, but let's just, maybe it's, that seems to fit pretty well there. Move this one out of the way a minute. So yeah, that might be it. That's hard to find too, though. So maybe they're both right. It doesn't really matter. As long as you found these shorter term ones and are playing them, and this is just another. Really, you just got another shorter term one right here. And actually, I think you probably have an overshoot of it, which led to the break in a new low. And so maybe it's more like that. That's probably the better way to play that, to be honest with you. Just play each of these channels, these short-term channels down through here. But anyway, we make a bottom here, we bounce. You just can't go long there yet, and it looks like we're going to start back up. And notice what happens here. I drew this pink channel. It's pretty clear we're in a channel, but notice how it starts reacting to that trend line up through there. So this trend line is probably, especially if we break out of here and go higher, is probably the dominant pattern, and this is just a secondary pattern. And notice what we do. We got a new high, and you get a first entry, and you pull back here, and you get a second entry with a great signal bar, and it's right off that trend line. It closes outside the channel there. Look how many times we bounced right off that trend line. It's pretty obvious that trend line's in play. And so I like going long there. And if you catch that one, you can ride this. I mean, never do we really correct much. Maybe you ride that thing, you could ride it all the way up. You do not get a lot of other opportunities to enter in here. Too congested here. First entry. There's a second entry here, but it's right into the highs. And now you've had, you've got a leg up, another leg. I'd look for probably a measured leg, and then you could sell off again, which is, usually what you might be looking for. And you can see that all that's right into where it might be a measured move. And then, of course, all of this is just, by the time you get to here, you get a confirmation of your trend. Let me zoom in here and show you this a little bit closer. Here's this channel working up here. And by the time you get to here, you can bounce right here. You get a confirmation of this trend line. And it really looks like a spike in channel. So there's a secondary channel working around up through here too. You are near the highs of that, but this is your main trend line, the EMA and so forth. So, and there is, and it's a first entry, second entry, but notice the new low here, it's lower than that. So it's also a first entry, second entry failure. So that, if it breaks higher, it's probably a continuation pattern on a failure, but it's also a second entry long. Now, normally I'd tell you, don't go long in congestion like that. But once again, this is one of those trends. You can see this has turned into there's a lot of strong buying here. And it maybe is short cover, but it doesn't matter why. As long as the buying is strong and overcoming the selling like that, you got to take advantage of it. So again, I drew this green. It's a little, you need to be able to see this and understand that some of this is a little more advanced. So make sure you understand what's going on. This wouldn't be for everybody, because I've shown this before, and then the next day somebody gets a little channel about like this, and they say, that's one of those real strong trends you talked about, and I bought here and it turned instantly. Why? Well, you need to know they're long extended trends usually. See how long that trend is, and see how long this trend is. So you need good evidence that it's really a strong trend and it's continuing. And of course, this gets a little overshoot, and then we get two legs down. There's a second entry there, but you can't take that. Don't take that. And you actually get a couple of legs up, and there's a second entry short right there. It's still a little early to go short yet because we're looking for a high, but when it breaks higher right there and turns down and gives you that lower high, you're probably going to retest this low, and you're probably coming back to the trend line. And so I like that one for a short, and the big trend might be reestablishing. It looks like it's maybe going to reestablish and retest the lows, because normally you get a retest of these lows again, even if the trend line had already had a break and a new low. Generally, you get a second test of it, so we might get another one tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But I like going short there. Again, it's a first entry, and then it makes a higher, it comes higher there, and that's a higher low. So when it breaks lower there, it's a second entry short. And it runs down. I mean, it's a quick, easy move, and then we're just bouncing up. And again, this is all a little too congested. There's a second entry long right here, but look how congested. Not a great signal bar either. And then this is a higher low, but then you got to go long, and you're kind of making lower lows and lower highs. If this goes higher, maybe that erases that thought, but we haven't gone higher yet, which we do. Then it comes back here, and you makes another, and again, you can see the trend line still in play here, but no signal bar there. It's just a first entry, and that turns out to be a really nice move. Most people now are saying, hey, we're going higher. Look at all those tests. If this breaks higher, I don't care if the signal bar is any good or not. I'm going long. I'm not. I tend to like to make the rules and stick to them, because when you start picking and choosing, you start having trouble. So just decide what you're going to do. If you're going to, you just about have to use the signal bars to filter your trades. And every now and then you'll get it wrong and you'll miss a good move, but don't sweat it. You'll get another opportunity, and you'll save yourself a lot of heartache in the long run. So I don't suggest taking that trade, even though it just rockets right off. And you probably figure it would after it tested it that many times. So anyway, you'd have been better off to enter here if you were going to do that into the resistance, because it's been a fairly strong trend, and that trend line is still in play. So if I were going to enter here, it would be here, not here. But runs up, gets a break, two legs. It was tempting to go short there. And looking at it after the fact, the problem is the trend is still up. It's still valid. But there was a good chance we were coming all the way back to the trend line again, at least to the EMA. And because you've got your trend, you got a break, you got two legs to a new high, turned down right off the midline, very bearish bar, good waves from the EMA, but common sense and following the rules is the better thing. So again, I think you're better off to skip it, because you just keep waiting until you find a chance to go long is what you need to do. Of course, we make another run to a high here, get a break. We tried a couple times to go higher. We come back down, and you get a first entry, and it pulls back here, fails, turns up, and when it broke by that bar, it's a second entry. I would not, with that being a doji like that, or no body, I would wait till this closes. And even then, it just barely got its 6 ticks before it sold off. And the other thing here, it's getting a little late, so I'm a little leery of taking that trade this late. But we're in an uptrend, and it's a second entry long, and it's got a great signal bar. Again, I don't think I would take that on the engulfing bar. Maybe you do, because that's where the second entry triggered. The better thing to do would be to let it break higher here and drop your limit order where it would have entered there 1 tick, and then that gives you that extra room, and then you would have had more than 6 ticks to get out with. That would be the better way to play that. I marked it green because I know somebody will probably ask about it, but it's late in the day, and this big strong trend is obviously still in play, but it's not near as strong. It doesn't have this right here. Look at the difference how that looks versus how it looks here. It's a lot more sideways here, a lot more. It's not one of these strong trends that we had this strong buying here, and then after this correction, it still continued to go up. It's still an uptrend, but it's not that strong thing. It's not the real strong tight trend that you kind of see here. So it's a little different. And you don't want to be playing it like you might have played this one, or how you played these strong ones coming down late in the trend. So I hope that's clear. I hope that makes sense. To new people, it probably won't. It all probably looks the same to you, but just keep practicing, keep studying. It'll come to you. So there it is. Took 30 minutes today. There's a lot going on here today. So it was a really good trading day. Let's see if we get some follow through buying tomorrow, or if we're going to chop sideways and get some consolidation, or maybe go higher again. We'll see. It's hard to know what it's going to do, but it wouldn't surprise me if we get some more follow through selling tomorrow, even if it does reverse at some point. No matter what happens, we might get some mixed trading. We get a lot of that lately. Even on a day like this, we still kind of got some mixed trading in here a few times. You got to be less on days like this when the trend's this strong. On the mixed trading, you want to be looking for shorts, not trying to get long. And if it was real strong trend up on the mixed trading, you want to look to get long, not short so much. So hopefully that's clear. You look to stay with the main trend. So sometimes people get confused on that. But there it is, super sell-off that corrected a little bit before we went sideways into the close. Again, we'll see what tomorrow brings, but I'm going to wrap it up. I'm done for today. We'll be back tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.